Michael Johnson, welcome to the Hotelier Huddle. Thank you so much for doing this today. I know that even though you're kind of technically retired, I know you're actually flat out probably working more only without a paycheck these days. And I know you're busy. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely my pleasure and lovely to see you as well, Shannon. So good to see you.
Now, I always like to just run down really quickly a little bit about the career journey so far of my Hotelier Huddle guests. It's really interesting for my listeners and viewers to know who they're listening to. Now, it's a little bit tougher for you because your experience is so long ranging and diverse, but I'm going to go through a lightning round if that's okay, even though you already
Okay.
know this.
All right.
So you started with Southern Pacific Hotels, 24 years. Wow. And I want to ask you about the longevity of that because that's really rare. And then you were with, and that was mostly in Australia. That was all Australia hotels then, right?
Australia, New Zealand,
Yeah.
Australia.
Okay. And then you went to Totally Tourism for 3 years, and that was in Queenstown, New Zealand. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
And then I believe your first hotel GM role was at the Amora Hotel Jameson, Sydney. And that was from
Not my first
2007.
GM role, but my first
Okay.
GM role back in Sydney
Right, right,
after
right.
after a number of GM roles prior. But I'd been in New Zealand and I'd come out of the industry for a few years doing totally tourism. So it was my step back into the hotels, which was fantastic. And Amora was a great hotel.
That would have been a challenging pivot for sure.
Right.
And then you moved to Oscar's Hotels as a hotel development consultant. And I'll be interesting to hear how that, informed, your subsequent roles, especially with a global hotel group where you moved to Pan Pacific Hotels Group and you were GM there at Park Royal Melbourne Airport. Airport hotels, always a very tough, interesting gig. And then,
They're a different beast.
and then you were GM at Park Royal Parramatta from
Correct.
2012 to 2019. And then you were Chief Executive Officer at Tourism Accommodation Australia, which then amalgamated into Accommodation Australia, which
Correct.
is where I first met you because we did some training modules together and various different advocacy things. Because, they're a peak accommodation body, which is focused on members and amazing advocacy for the industry. So, want to hear a little bit more about that from you. And
Yeah.
now you're ambassador for Relove, which I love, which is a registered charity supporting women and children impacted by domestic violence and people experiencing homelessness. And I'm very keen to hear how more hotel owners can be more involved there.
Yeah.
So, my first question to you, Michael Johnson. Um, you've you've been in hospitality since 1980,
Yeah.
if my maths is right.
That's correct.
So that's that's a lot of years of evolution from starting with handwritten reservations all the way to AI chatbots. So for someone just starting out today who might be wondering if this industry is a career or just a stepping stone, what made you stay? And was there ever anything that maybe almost nearly made you leave?
I think the big thing that made me stay was the people because
Yeah,
it was at a time when hotels were busy. We had great people. It was enjoyable.
sure.
And I just used to love it. And when I say used to, I mean it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and it was a learning experience. So those early years for me, I was learning all the time, and I always had in the back of my mind that I'd have to go back to work. And it was a mentor. It was the general manager who said he used to call me Mick. He'd say, "Mick, what are you doing with your life?" I said, "Oh, look, eventually I have to go back to Sydney and go back to work." He said, "What do you call what you're doing here?" I said, "Oh, this is just fun." So,
Wow.
lo and behold, he actually said, "Well, look, I think you've got opportunity. So what if we put you through some different departments and get you ready for when you do want to go back to Sydney and go back as an assistant manager? Do you know what I mean? Don't leave the industry." And so I did. I think I said to him, "Do they actually have hotels in Sydney?" seriously. I had no you know, it was very much I was very ignorant to the industry in Sydney, but I knew a lot about it in Queenstown where I was at that time and who we were competing with.
Sure.
It was very early days in the industry, and as you say, we were on Whitney systems and
Oh, the
front
Whitney
ends.
rack.
Yeah, yeah, Whitney racks
The Whitney rack.
and
Bless.
Sweeter systems, and guess what? Plug in operator, may I help you? You know, you had to plug in on the switchboard. There was no
Yeah.
yeah, people couldn't ring out from their room, they had to come through you. So, yeah, it was definitely early days
Good
from that
times.
perspective to today. You know, I talk to GMs these days in new hotels, I say, "No phone?" They said, don't really need it. Everybody's got their own phone, you know what I mean? Why do we need a phone in the room? Same, I just talked to someone the other day and they said, "Clocks. Why do we need clocks? Everyone's got their own clock. No one needs an alarm.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a phone."
That's
Very
right, and
true.
it's one less thing on the housekeeping checklist because
Correct.
housekeeping
And it's
doesn't
one of
have
those
to
things to upset
match
guests.
the
When
time on the microwave to the wall clock to the bedside clock. That's one less thing for them to tick off.
and when that bedside clock goes off at 5 o'clock because it was the previous guest and we didn't reset it
Oh,
properly, it's,
it's the
you know,
worst.
probably a great, you know, one of those complaints over the years, and you just take the clock out. Gone. Problem gone. Problem solved. Yeah, so I think it was very early days tech-wise, but the people were genuine, the people were fantastic, and so I got excited and I it just you know, I mean, I just kept like a sponge, learning as much as I could and just enjoyed it so much, and the years just kept flying by.
And it speaks to the power of a mentor and the
Mm.
power of mentorship. And that seems to be a real through line with a lot of the guests that I speak with on this podcast is the people who enjoy it the most and have the most success in our industry had at least one, if not more, good mentors that believed in them, said the right thing, gave them just the right encouragement at just the right moment.
And I have to say, I think I took that as I always took that on that I had to remember myself as I was, you know, became a GM as well, or even as a departmental manager, that people are looking up to me
Yes,
for that mentorship too. So it's quite a critical responsibility, I think, we have as managers to ensure we're bringing the people through. That's the big one. Yeah.
absolutely right. It's the pay it forward concept, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Too right it is.
simple,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
often overlooked. Speaking to that, in your first GM role back on the ground in Australia, at the Amora Hotel Jameson, Sydney, what's the thing that perhaps you were completely unprepared for when you stepped into that role? And was there a lesson from your previous roles or frontline days that saved you in that moment, maybe?
Look, I think that the interesting thing was that I was coming back into Sydney out of Queenstown, New Zealand. I had done this before, but many years before and in different roles. So to come back in as GM of Amora, I remember we had APEC on in Sydney, so we had all the international um, uh, prime ministers and presidents, and Clinton was here, and you know, I mean, it was all go. So you actually came back,
Fancy stuff.
yeah. So next thing
Fancy.
you know,
Yeah.
you are attending these meetings, sitting there going, "Wow, like this is," and Sydney was just going off. You know, it was
Yeah.
fantastic, but it was short lived because then we went into the global financial crisis, and next thing you know,
Indeed.
we'd gone from having this really exciting time and really busy time and a really good team of people to then looking at, wow, how can we now pare back, save some dollars? Occupancy's dropped, things were tough. So, and you know, it's interesting when I think about it in hotel land. It's normally every between 5 and 7 years we get something. You know, if I look at my career, it was every 5 to 7 years there'd be another, and that's why I always say, you know, when they say, "Oh, we could never afford to have another COVID." I agree, totally agree. We don't want another COVID, but we'll have another something. You know what I mean? This that's
Absolutely right.
bound to happen. We just don't know what it is yet, you know? And we need to be prepared for it. And I think more and more, particularly our major operators today have got contingencies ready in place for when something hits the fan, and they're ready. They have to be ready because they don't know what it is. They don't know what it might be, but they've got a plan at least in the cupboard.
Interesting you say that, Michael, because, and it isn't about doom and gloom whatsoever, but it's, even in revenue management fundamental 101 training, we teach about how things go in 5 and 7 year cycles.
Correct.
And, particularly 7 year cycles with major things, right? Whether it's a pandemic or a global financial crisis or a major, used to be weather storms, that's a bit different now, but 5 and 7 year cycles. And so it isn't about, fear, but it's about looking at how we got out of it last time and what worked and what didn't.
Correct.
And, we're not going to be able to discount our way out of the next one, but, whatever things worked last time. And so it is about being prepared and looking at what worked and what didn't the
Yep.
last time we had a similar event. So it is all about the preparation, to your point.
Yeah, very much so. And certainly I don't want to focus on doom and gloom, but I'm just saying it's interesting. When I look back over the years, you can see them, SARS and September 11,
Yes.
BFC, and
Yes.
I mean, like you just keep ticking them off. And they were tough times, but do you know what? The people, we have great people. We're a very resilient industry and we always bounce back, and we will bounce back and continue to bounce back, and we'll continue to grow, and our industry continues to grow, and our hotel industry continues to grow, and tourism continues to grow. So, we've been in growth mode for many, many, many years. Do you know what I mean? And I still do have recollections of when I started. Yeah, we were in early days. We didn't, I think we had, international hotels in Sydney in 1980 were, I think we had Sydney Boulevard was there,
Three,
and,
three or
and
something.
maybe Sheraton was there.
Was
As
the What year did the Four Seasons Sydney and George Street, did that open?
82, I
81
think,
or 82 or something?
82.
82, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Region, it was, yeah, of course, in its day.
Yep.
But yeah, so we had very, and that was exactly how the world was. Do you know what I mean? We weren't traveling yet, but by gosh, we were getting the fever. And and now, as we know, it's we look at forecasts year on year, and it continues to be growth. You know what I mean? So, and of course, right at this minute in Sydney, they're screaming out saying we need more hotels. We've got a new airport opening. We still don't have enough airports in Western Sydney to cope. We've got a few ones in the pipeline, but they're going to be still 3 years away. 27, maybe 28. So yeah, I think we will find ourselves get short there. But of course, for owners and for operators, they'll be sitting in the 90s and they'll be happy. Um, but of course, there is that element where, as you know, if we can't get in, we'll go somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? So you got to, there is a tipping point. Oh, there you go.
Yes,
Yeah, there is a tipping point.
that's
So
right. Because even in markets that do have, um, you know, unconstrained excess demand, even in those situations where there feels like to some operators there's too much accommodation, guests still have so much choice.
yeah,
And when there's so much choice like that, that means our price has to be exactly right. um,
correct.
that's another whole podcast. I think um, but I would imagine that that cyclical nature of the industry and how guests and employees perform, that would have informed certainly your role as CEO of Accommodation Australia, where led the epic amalgamation of the two industry associations. So it was Tourism Accommodation Australia and then Accommodation Australia, and that's about as cross departmental as it gets, but with an entire organization. So I'm I'm curious to know what did you learn about bringing cultures, priorities, and egos together that perhaps translates into helping a front desk team work better with housekeeping and food and beverage.
It was an interesting time because we had been competing the two associations for many years, and you
Sure,
will recall as well.
sure.
Um, so you had Accommodation Association of Australia and you had Tourism Accommodation Australia. But what actually happened was with COVID. With COVID, our eyes opened, and both associations just went, guys. Let's not waste a good pandemic. Let's get on and actually put these two associates. And we
Yes,
had
yes,
tried a number of times over the years. and the egos had always got in the way, I have to say. And that's not a negative because you know what? We don't have people in senior roles without egos. You got to have them. Do you know what I mean? You got to have them. That's how they get there.
That's how they got there.
That's how we
Yes.
get things done. So the interesting thing was this time everyone's ego said, "Hey, we have to really let this happen this time for the good of our industry." And so everyone sat back and said, "Right, let's get on with it." Um, Even to the extent where myself and the CEO at the time of Accommodation Association Australia said, "Let's just go for it. Whoever wins wins the CEO role." You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to hold it up because of that. And I said, nor would I. Let's just go for it. So we started doing so much together, and it was fantastic because it just we'd put all of our armory down, and we were at white flag peace. It was fantastic, and so we did a lot together. We started doing functions together, as you know. We started doing training together. We started doing
Yes.
every aspect of the association together, and whilst we were doing that, there were a whole lot of people sitting in rooms, solicitors and others that were actually trying to work out the paperwork that was going to make this thing happen. And so we didn't get involved in that, which was good. We were able to continue to focus on our members. We you know we were coming we were coming through COVID. COVID was on and off again still. So we were really wanted to ensure we stayed focused on supporting our members, advocating for our members where that advocacy was so critical at that time, and let the others do that down and dirty work. And so that was fantastic. And so there was a lot of people behind the scenes that probably people weren't aware of that were really doing a great job for us. So that was great. And then, of course, as we got closer, Dean went off and joined the Australian Travel Industry Association as CEO.
Yes.
And of course, Richard came back for a term. He did a short term contract. And then next thing he said, well, we're nearly there. Oh, you may as well let Michael run both. So that was an interesting time running both the associations. But we were already so close. It was great. And so I just really had the pleasure of doing that, working with both. And then, all of a sudden I had an office in Market Street. I had an office in Castlereagh Street, which was unusual having. But of course, we closed the Market Street office pretty quickly, and so we went to one office, and you know what I mean. So we started to make the necessary changes that were needed to come out with one association. And look, it's a couple of years now and it's ticking along and it's going well and everybody's happy and we're not, you don't have that fight going on. James is doing a great job. James Goodwin is the new CEO, and he's got a great team in all the states and territories that are doing a fabulous job. So, you know, tick, we got there, so it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. I'm really happy and something I'm proud of.
And rightfully so. And do you know what's so interesting to me about that is the through line and the exact uh, comparison to what happened over the same period on the ground in some hotel comp set communities in terms of, when I think about regional communities that maybe had 10 properties that prior to the crisis, prior to the pandemic, were fiercely competitive, never played nicely with one another. And then to your point about setting aside the egos, don't waste the crisis, let's advocate for the guests. They started to work together
Yeah.
because they had to. And properties that had been fierce competitors before now came together and they supported the local restaurants and they, came out with campaigns together to get people to come to their destination once LGAs opened up. And so that same mentality that you just described is what kept the lights on and continues to do so and has changed that whole mentality with a lot of hoteliers that just learn to behave differently and with much better success. I mean, don't get me wrong, they still compete and they still keep their secrets appropriately. But it's that, setting egos aside, don't waste the crisis and advocate for the members of the guests. It's very powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very powerful. And we saw as well, the associations that had, all membership-based associations. So there's a certain amount of rivalry there that, we want our members, we don't want our
Sure.
members. We don't mind them being your members, but don't try and pull them away totally from us. If they want to be in both camps,
Sure.
that's fine. But, you know what I mean? So we'd always sort of been protected, but we saw all those guards all come down as well. Everyone just wanted to get in and work together for the good of industry. And I have to say, it just made for a much better working environment, to know that you didn't have to watch your back all the time, and just go forward with people and industry associations bring each other. What are you going to do with this? We're thinking about that. Yeah, fantastic. All right, let's. So, whereas before you wouldn't, that wouldn't happen. So it was actually it was a really good time, and I think we learned a lot from it. And there was a few other associations where there was a number, like the conference association, the bureaus. There was about 3 or 4 of them, all different associations, all doing the conference and event space. And so next thing you know, they said, right, if we can do it, we can. If they can do it, we can do it. So they started the process, and they did it as well. So we've
Yeah.
seen another industry group heavily aligned to the hotels that have now gone from. I think they've gone from 4 to 1, which encapsulated 3, and there's still 1 standalone. Yeah. So
And
that's
guess who ultimately benefits? The members. And
correct.
guess who ultimately benefits? The guests.
Yeah,
And that's
correct.
what it's about. And then
Very much.
ultimately, when members are benefit and guests are benefit, then the owner's profits are benefits too. And that's what it's about at the end of the day, not to be cynical.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Your career has spanned the Australian market very deeply with stints in New Zealand. And I'd love to know how do you see the Australian hospitality's unique character? And what, if anything, do you think we could learn from global practices without losing what makes us distinctly Australian?
I I still find the work that we're doing in Australia, sometimes we're our own biggest critic. And
Yeah, yeah,
and look, one thing I have done in the last 18 months since I retired is I've traveled a lot. And, hey, we do it pretty well, I'm telling you.
yeah, yes,
So, I
yes.
think sometimes we're too hard
I
on ourselves.
agree.
I think in actual fact, we have, and we do a very, very good job at the industry that we operate in. I think we have really good teams of people that are working in our hotels. Um, I certainly, see them coming through in the awards nights, and I've been able to do some judging recently for awards. I just some wonderful, wonderful youth coming through, and I'm just,
Right?
excites me to see it, and the thing is they're so smart, they're so switched on, and they come with a new energy, which is fantastic. And the other interesting thing is you spoke about, going way, way back. When we started in the industry, we were taught the trade, but we were taught service and about, customer service and whatever. The kids today, they've already got all computer skills, they've got all that, they've got all this really good infrastructural skills, so there's not as much
Mm,
to teach them in that front. It's more, if they've got that willingness to serve, and that's to give service, not to be servile. I think,
yes.
we're on winners because it is interesting. You see someone come onto a front desk these days, new to the industry. Within a week, they know how the computer goes. Do you know what I mean? They don't need all the training that, we had over the years to work out how it all goes and why it goes, why it goes. They know like that, what I mean? They don't even have to think about it. So I think they're well skilled up in that space. It's learning really more so our, some of our lingo. We have our own lingo, and that's cool. I think
Sure.
most industries do. We have our own lingo, and what I mean? When you tell someone says, "How's your ADR?" We know what we're talking about. No one else does.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it when someone always asks, "How's your room rate occupancy going?" Well, do you want to know room rate or do you want to know occupancy? You know what I mean? But yeah, so it's actually quite interesting. But I think, yeah, the young ones today certainly come with a whole new energy. I think the level that we were in the industry at 23, 24, they are already at 20. Do you know what I mean? So they're gonna be managers earlier. They're going to they're gonna want to achieve as much as they can quickly, and we know that.
Yes.
And and so our managers need to be ready for that as well, and ensure that they're stimulating them uh, with that understanding that they've got all that knowledge, because otherwise we know they will jump. They will jump, and we want to hang on to them. So I think that's pretty critical for today.
Here's a question for the night auditor that might be listening to this podcast at 2 a.m., or a housekeeper listening on their break, or a food runner wondering if there's a future here for them. Based on your journey, what's a skill or a mindset that you think they should develop now that will serve them, whether they become a GM or take a different path?
Look, it's something we speak about a lot, and it's attitude. But there's a
Mm,
specific attitude. There's an attitude where that night manager might be asked tomorrow, listen, we're really struggling on the late shift. Would you change shifts and actually come and do a 3 to 11 for us? Instead of saying, oh, that will upset my sleep pattern, so I can't actually do that. Um, you go, yeah.
yes.
You say, yes, I'd love to do that. I'd love to be happy to do that. And so, and that was something that I always said yes. In actual fact, I had someone say to me one time, you're going to have to stop saying yes because you're just getting rocketed around the place. But it was exactly that. I just always said yes, and look, I was able to go through the ranks pretty quickly because of saying yes. Because I think people would say, well, just ask Michael because he'll say yes, and we can get that to where we need to go. Do you know what I mean? And that sort of always works. So, yeah, I was always, even as when I was training, someone would say, do you want to do a breakfast shift? I'd say, yes. I don't know how to, but you'll have to teach me. They'd say, oh, that's all right. We'll teach you. Right. And next thing you
Yeah.
know, you're learning food and beverage. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I think, taking the opportunities when they are offered, yes, because like I said, that always stays in back of mind. So that night manager that's really looking to maybe become an assistant manager during the day, and coming off nights, which inevitably they do, then you'd be saying yes to everything you can, because when they're looking for another assistant manager to say, we want that guy off nights, we want him on day, and we'll get a new night manager, and then let him progress where he needs to progress. And the same with that housekeeper. That housekeeper, when they say, will you stay on an extra hour because we got 2 rooms they've just come back. No, sorry, I've got to go. Oh, right, okay. Or yes. Now, don't get me wrong, people have got personal circumstances and they
Of
can't say yes.
course. Of
But
course.
but if you
Of course.
don't just say no because you don't want to help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I think, and that's why I love the industry as well, because you say yes and you can really actually get mobile and you enjoy it. You enjoy the industry you're in then. Do you know what I mean? And,
You
because
do.
it's it's something that just spins your wheels.
So be the yes person
Be the yes person.
every time you can,
Yeah,
and then you're training your colleagues and your team and your supervisors to know that you're the go-to person. It's very powerful.
yeah. And then I think that comes into, you start to take that approach into other things as well. So, instead of thinking, no, we can't do that. Why can't we do that? Have a think about how we can actually do it, not how we can't do it. Too hard.
Yes.
Too often we see that. It shouldn't be no. It should be let me see. Let me see what I can do for you, and come back then with some solution, even if it may not be the exact solution, but it's not a sorry, can't do it.
It's true. And still on that, but on the, I suppose, other end of that spectrum, uh, you know, Michael, you've had this, I'll call it a helicopter view from industry leadership and also on the ground reality of operations. And I wonder, what's one thing that our industry gets wrong about developing the next generation of hospitality professionals? And what do you think we could start doing tomorrow to fix it, if anything?
I think sometimes we get a little bit caught up in that. It's a casual job. It's a stepping stone to
Yes.
another career. I mean,
Yes.
but guess what? We need lots of casuals and part timers. We need lots of them.
Sure.
and our industry doesn't operate without them. It can't. Um,
No, keeps
so
things spinning. We need it. Mm,
correct, and it's interesting because sometimes it's those people that are in those casual and part-time roles. Yes, they're doing the uni degrees, and yes, they may have a mindset to go off and do something else, but they are part of your service team, right? Today, they enjoy the time they're with you. You enjoy that time with them, and we wish them all the very best in their career that they go to. But guess what? Some of them turn around and go, I don't wanna leave. Actually don't wanna leave this industry. I've just finished my degree, but I don't wanna leave. Well, guess what? You got a job, why don't you do a graduate training course with us? Or, you know what I mean? And so next thing you know, give them more opportunity within the industry that they're working in. And we get some of our best people. You never know what that casual is gonna do in so many years' time, you know what I mean? And we do need them. So I say, don't get too caught up on the, "Oh, it's just a stepping stone," and, it's I think we still have a responsibility when it comes to schools and parents that this is a great
of
industry.
course.
It's a great career, and certainly they shouldn't be anti it, let's put it that way. And because sometimes you can get a bit anti in that space but that's how far back it goes. It goes back to when they're saying, "I don't know what I wanna do." Oh, I might do
Yes.
hospitality. Oh, that's only a stepping stone. Well, no, that's career. That's career. It just depends whether you use it as a career.
If you could time travel and talk with your own very early hotelier career self, what's one piece of wisdom you'd tell that guy that might spare him some pain or at least help him understand the pain had a purpose?
That's a very difficult question, in actual fact, because
I know. We ask the
uh,
tough questions here on Hotelier Huddle, Michael.
yeah, yeah. I was going to say it's interesting because sometimes I probably did move too quickly, so maybe I should have stayed still a little bit longer in some of the positions that I was in. But I was always eager to go, and like I said, I always said yes. So, and I still think that was just me. But sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should have stayed a bit longer in that role or that role. I really enjoyed that role, and then I got moved to that role, and you think, "Gee, I'm not enjoying this as much as I enjoyed." You know what I mean? You sort of question that a bit, but I don't think you can look back that way, really, because it's all, it is the career that you did, and I don't regret any of it. I mean, the only thing I did do was I did a trade before I joined our industry. So I'm a diesel mechanic by trade and truck mechanic. And the best thing I ever did
Oh,
was start work in a hotel. That's the best thing I ever did
wow.
because I went from an industry that was very not people orientated in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you worked
Yes.
by yourself during the day, or maybe with an apprentice by you, or whatever. But it was um, very male orientated as well. You just
And lonely by the sound of
you're
it.
in a workshop full of men, and we're all there, and then finish work and you go and drink beer. I mean, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, we do that in our industry as well. But you didn't have the diversity of people that our industry, gives you in your guests. So your interactions are with so many, you know what I mean? So you're interacting with the people you work with, you're interacting with your guests, you're interacting with your suppliers. So there's so many different aspects to our role and our industry. And I don't think some people don't realize that as well when
Yes.
they think, I wouldn't mind going into hotels. They only think it's sort of one or two aspects, not the total, not the total.
No. And so it sounds like you learned pretty quickly better interactions and better beer. I'll stick with this. This is better.
Well, no, I think we started drinking Kahlua or no, I think it was Grand Marnier and Bailey's over ice. It was gorgeous. At the end of your shift, you know, you've just finished doing a 140 in your fine dining room, and you've been the sommelier tonight. You know, don't ask me to do it again because you're on your feet all night, as you know. But
Yeah.
and most of the guests American, and we're having a great time with them and all the rest. Then everyone's gone. We've cleaned up. And for everyone to sit down then and have a knock-off drink, it was just I just thought it was fantastic. Loved it. Those are very early days. I mean, in the management
No wonder
days,
you
I
stayed.
think some of the most enjoyable management days was being able to take your team through the most challenging And so when you can get your team through a challenging experience and come out the other side and be able to share the success with that team, so that was sort of on that upper end of it, do you know what I mean? And I must admit, I thoroughly used to enjoy that as well, thanking the team and having a bit of fun with the team.
Yeah.
And we had some pretty challenging times.
So now, in your technically retired era for now, I feel like a lot of hoteliers in your position would be spending all their time with Thunderbird rum cocktail on a beach in the Whitsunday somewhere. And I do hope you're doing a bit of that as well. But you're spending a lot of time in your ambassador role with Relove, which supports families in crisis with furniture and essentials. And I want to know so much more about this because to me, there's a beautiful thread and a through line here where you've spent your career creating temporary homes and hotels, and now you're helping people rebuild permanent homes. And I wonder, how has this work reframed what hospitality means to you?
It's interesting because I've been able to, I suppose, uh, having the contacts with the industry and understanding the industry and understanding the cycle of refurbishments and understanding how it works has been great because I'm able to actually speak to the managers, speak to their department heads about what we're in need of
In their language.
in their language. How do we want to do this? I can sort of, recently working with a hotel, they brought beds down in the morning, put them in the ballroom. I was able to audit and say yes, 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 no, yes, 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 no. And so next thing down on the dock, and the ones to us went that way, and the other ones went off for recycling. It just makes my heart sing to be able to
Yes.
help and see that happen. And we are doing 25 clients a week. So
Wow.
you imagine
Wow.
the bedding we need, the homewares we need, and it's
Yes.
phenomenal. And to see, a woman come in and with 3 kids, and next thing you know, they go out into our sales area of the warehouse, and they pick the furniture that they want, and we put their name on it and say, "That's yours now, that's yours, that's yours," and they pick their furniture, and they go into our homewares area, and they pick the cushions for the lounges, and they pick their pillows and sheets and doonas and everything you think. Starter kit, a box with cutlery, crockery, toaster, kettle, da 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 da, and everything. And so we put that together, and the next day it's delivered. The next day it's delivered, and a
Wow.
carload of volunteers go behind the truck and carry it all in, make the beds, put the cutlery in the drawer, put the pots in the cupboard. Do you know what I mean? Actually set up because these people are already been traumatized enough.
Yes.
We're that step. We don't ask any questions. They come with a case manager. We just say, let's go
Sure.
shopping. And the next day they go from a dwelling, which they've got through social housing normally, to now it's a home. Even put,
Yes.
they get to pick prints and put prints on the walls, and we put them up for them, all the rest, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, so it's a wonderful organisation.
And it must be so empowering because, to your point about not asking questions, I mean, these people have come to have this need through such a range of different reasons. They could be fleeing domestic abuse, right? They could be, uh, y- you know, um, recently incarcerated and now they're getting back into a home. They could have lost their home in a flood or a fire, and it's not about that. It's just about the need
Yeah,
and fulfilling the need, and that must be just so empowering, to be able to solve for that.
yeah, yeah, and it's great. And so I'm very much as an ambassador, talking to hotels. I meet with hotels and talk about their refurbishment programs, and I have to say it keeps me connected to the industry I love, which is great, and it's doing good to 25 people a week. So I'm happy. And the
Wow.
interesting thing is we have 70 volunteers that work at Relove, and that are helping these clients through their process and then picking the furniture. And it's quite phenomenal. We've got a 1,500 square metre warehouse and out at Alexandria. And it's just it's a really good thing. And I stumbled onto it just as I was finishing Accommodation Australia. And it just, to me, it was something like, yeah, I'd like to help. For example, on Monday, I will be on Gold Coast at the AHA National Awards. Now, someone might think we're going for the party. Well, I'm not going for the party. I'm going to talk about Relove to everyone I meet.
Nice,
Because
nice, nice.
interesting, every time I'm at a function, I find someone that goes, "Oh, we've actually got something coming up that would interest you." And you go, "That's fantastic." And then boom, it's been worthwhile. And I think as well, the more you're in people's line of fire, do you know what I mean? They go, "Oh, that's right. We must think of Relove because we're doing that thing." And it may not be their hotel, it might be one of the other hotels. It must ring the GM of
Sure.
that hotel because they've just come back from China. They won't know anything about Relove and they're about to do a refurb. So maybe I'll ring that GM and I might know, or I might not know that that GM's left, that GM's coming from China. Do you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you've lost your connection. So, you know, that's one thing is we move people around, as we know. So that's why I sort of keep mobile as I can in circling about and attending events um, and and yeah, it pays off. It does pay off. So
If more hoteliers or more hotel owners or even developers that are working on, refurbs, if
rebrandings.
more owners and hotels rebranding want to get involved, how do they do that other than knowing you?
Well, they can definitely contact me because most of them can, but also they can
Yes.
go directly to Relove. You can Google Relove.
We'll put the link when we publish this podcast as well.
That'd be great. But yeah, so and it's interesting. The need's huge, and the big need we've got at the moment is for beds because we go through so many beds, so many
I'll
beds.
bet.
So, and do you know what I'm finding, which is there's more organisations now changing mattresses and not bases. So we're getting plenty of mattresses, but I don't have any bases. So if anyone's got any bases out there, we need bases.
Right, right.
It's like I say, there's always a need, and I'll get a phone call and someone will say, "Do you want 60 kettles?" Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? If
We'll
they're in good
take
condition,
them.
if they're in good condition. And actual fact, I'll come and pick them up, which I do. I will, and I did. And I turn up and you know hand in 60 kettles. Now 60 kettles doesn't take long for those to go. But it's interesting as well. The other thing is we say, we want quality.
Of course.
We don't want rubbish. We want quality
No.
because someone has just come out of a situation and, I hear the term occasionally, beggars can't be choosers. We're not begging. We're not beggars. And the people that we're
No.
dealing with aren't begging. We're actually helping.
Absolutely not.
We're happy. And of course, the other thing we're helping is all this furniture that's not going to landfill is actually going and being
Yes.
reloved, which is fantastic. Do you know what I mean? So, you're getting, you're helping that whole environmental, that circular economy. So it ticks every box. It's not a hard sell, actually, Shannon. That's the interesting thing. I talked to someone about it. They go, "How do we get involved? You want to be involved?" I said, "Well,
Yes.
so it's really good. Yeah, really good. And the people are just lovely. They are lovely. And a day out there is a day at the warehouse is fantastic, gentlemen. You
I'll
never get
bet.
you never get so many hugs. It's fabulous. They're just lovely people and everyone's there to help. They're not there to be paid, they're there to help. And, what I mean? Oh, don't get me wrong, we've got some really good stuff. We've got really nice truck drivers and forklift drivers because we've got to have those. You've got to get warehouse managers, you've got to have the people that know what they're doing
Yeah,
because
the sheer logistics of it is
it's a
just epic.
major logistics. It's a major logistics. And constant furniture coming in, constant furniture going out. So, it's amazing. Every week I go and I see in the sales area, all the furniture that was there last week is no longer that furniture. It was all different furniture there. Do you know what I mean? So
It must
that's
be
how,
so satisfying.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's just a constant turn, and but also it just means we're just constantly fulfilling that gap. But we need help and we need support and we need, we are a charity. We have our yearly fundraiser dinner, we have our annual golf day, and we have, so we have a few things where we raise funds because we need to raise funds. And we apply for government grants and we're successful with some and not with others. And do you know what I mean? So it's not easy, I think, for those that are, certainly our co-founders are wonderful people. They it's only 4 years old. And Ben is an investment banker and Ren is an architect designer. So here you've got two
Interesting.
professional people, great friends that decided one day, just coming out of COVID, to help with some furniture, got more than they thought they would, and went, "Hey, there's a gap here," and the rest is history. It's growing, growing, growing. Yeah, so yeah, it's really good.
I love everything about it, and it's everything that's right with the world at the moment, Michael. And I think
Yeah,
you're their perfect ambassador. I love that.
I certainly enjoy it. Certainly enjoy it. And like I say, it's very rewarding when I get a call and they say, "We've got X beds coming in, or we've got furniture coming in from that hotel. Do you know about it?" I say, "I spoke to those people at no vacancy." Fantastic. So you get excited.
I love it. Okay, Michael Johnson, we close each hotelier huddle with a final toast. If you are raising a glass to hoteliers everywhere, what is your toast to hoteliers everywhere, Michael?
Keep enjoying what you're doing.
Mm,
Keep enjoying what you're doing. We have a great industry and it's certainly there to be enjoyed. So keep enjoying it. That's and look,
don't we
not
just?
not to say it doesn't have its challenges, but it's a great industry full of great people. That's why we're there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
True that, and I agree. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time, Michael Johnson. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining the huddle today.
Thanks very much for having me, Shannon. Really appreciate it.